This is Coach Dabo Sweeney of the Clemson Tigers, and you're listening to the Clemson Hotline on the John C. Calhoun Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Clemson Hotline, and our trusty producer forgot to hit record on the YouTube version. So for all you people watching the show on YouTube, that's youtube.com/LEL. That's L Swan Media. You'll catch the show starting now. You didn't get to hear my opening rant about Clemson Tiger basketball. Lots of frustration can be found in the chat room. Here's the one thing I'll say, though, to the folks over in the chat room. It's this. And I've tried to put this into perspective as I've gotten older. I've come to grips with the fact that it doesn't matter really what T-shirt I wear, how I cut my hair, the way I park at the tailgate or pull into Death Valley, whatever you want to come up with. Nothing you do controls the outcome of the game except for the noise that you make in the stadium. That's the best thing you can do. It doesn't matter if you're wearing your lucky T-shirt because somebody else out there is ruining it. You just got to realize that. Superstitions get thrown out the door, Chris. I agree. Chris in the chat room says you got to throw them out. Now, look, did I give myself the skin fade every weekend this year except for the Florida State game? I did. And why did I do it? Because when I didn't do it, we lost. I said, well, it was me. It was me. And I tried to control it as much as I could. I tried to bring as much of what I could to the table, just like you did, just like the people around you did. You don't fault anybody for believing in these things because you want to feel like it's more than just about the team, that you're a part of this. You've invested it. And you have, and I'll give you that. I mean, I know many of you have given a lot of money and a lot of time and effort and energies to this. But at the end of the day, 27-17, you lose your fourth straight game. The first time that's happened since 1951 to 1954, some 8 years ago. Something ridiculous. Some number that you can't even believe. Somebody in the chat room calculated, because I've been too lazy to calculate that number today, how many years ago that's been since the 51 to 1954 series. The all-time record, though, still stands, as Scott points out in the chat room, at 65, 41, and 4. For whatever reason, brain-dead host here of the TigerNet Talk said 65, 40, and 14 last week, and also said that Steve Spurrier was the head coach at Auburn at some point. Let me say this, though. I was on some heavy medication at the time. You guys know I was recovering from a touch of the flu. That may have been the issue. Gave me a little touch of the brain twitch as well. But you know what? At the end of the day, here's the thing about it from me. You're no different than you were before. And we all know that both of these fan bases probably have a certain amount of people who are bandwagon fans. Both fan bases. That's a fair statement to make. And I don't know who has more. At this point, you would assume it's South Carolina. But you've got people who will change the way they feel about this series with the wind. Clemson, and my love for Clemson, and my family's love for Clemson, my son is 0-4. You know, it hurts me more, and this is so weird, to think about him being 0-4 than it does me that we've lost 4 straight. Because we don't love Clemson just because of the football. It's not because of the basketball and all the traditions. It's the entire body of work for me. It's everything that goes into it. Back to, many of you know this, my great-grandfather graduated in 1912. My grandfather went to school there with Banks McFadden. Legend says they were the only 2 guys with cars on campus at the time. I don't know if they ever got parking tickets back then. But this group of players, for everything they've done this season, to go 10-2, you can say it was against cupcake competition. You could say that you're disappointed because you didn't get over the hump with South Carolina. But there came a point near the end of that game where I just said to myself, kind of sitting there in those waning moments, this is a good South Carolina team. They're probably the best South Carolina team that the Gamecocks have ever put on the field. Have ever put on the field. And while we didn't perform up to the level that we hoped at home, our defensive backs let so many opportunities get away from them. Gary Peters had a clear interception. Xavier Brewer had a shot at 3 and only got 1. You know, those are things, those are moments you cannot, Nathan points it out in the chat room, 3 dropped interceptions. You cannot have that happen if you're going to win these ball games against teams like South Carolina. Because the brilliance of what Steve Spurrier did is that in the second half of that game, when the time was right, he took the air out of the football and he kept it out of Clemson's hands. And a high-powered offense garners only 3 points in the final 3 quarters. And in the second half, you hardly get any plays. You can't get any rhythm. But I just want people to understand that your life does not need to be in distress right now because Clemson lost this game. And there are people out there that will feel that way. And I'm not telling you that you need to take it. I'm not telling you that you need to be satisfied. But what I am telling you is that there's a whole lot more to the paw on the side of that helmet, the hill and the rock. Those things mean more than just the final score of this ball game. To me, it should mean more than that to you. Look, if it bothered you this morning, last night, all week, at some point you've got to get past it because you're right now no different than you were walking into that stadium. Walking into that stadium, you had lost the previous game against South Carolina. Walking out, you had lost the previous game to South Carolina. Clemson Tom notes he's a little different. Tom, I completely agree. I'm assuming you're talking, I hope you're talking exactly what I'm saying. Because I did say these words, and I quote, I sure am glad I'm not Clemson Tom today. Those things did come out of my mouth this morning, Tom. But you know what? Honestly, both sides of this rivalry, and it's becoming one more and more, it's clear to me that you see from the fans' perspective. Carolina fans, you didn't hear from them this past week a whole lot. They weren't comfortable going in there. They knew what we had. They knew what we had. And we had an opportunity, and we really did let them off the hook. We really did. Getting ready to check out the Twitter sphere. Let's see. T. Watson 006 says she loves the show. Thank you very much for tuning in. And Bent Zero says, while this season has been good, but we've only proven that we're not ready to be elite. We're the kings of mediocre. And I don't think that's a fair statement to make at this point because I think the polls reflected, Mike, I think the polls this week reflected that nationally speaking, people still think Clemson is a very good team. 15th in the AP, 14th in the coaches poll, 14th in the BCS. So I think we did learn that the people out there still respect what this team has done, sitting at 10-2, 7-1 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But there's one thing we did learn this weekend. One very valuable lesson that I learned personally. We'll talk about that when we get back. Right here on the Clemson Hotline on the John C. Calhoun Radio Network. What am I going to do with all these November 24th, 2012 shirts that say the Pitchfork returns? Oh, no! Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444 or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/seasonsbythelake. I hope to see you on the terrace.
Think if you live in a rural area you have to settle for a slow online experience?
We think that's crazy.
Exceed Broadband. It's the highest capacity satellite in the world, and it makes everything faster. Streaming videos, TV shows and movies, sharing photos, video chatting, sending files, and more. New feature,
Late Night Free Zone.
For details, call 800-503-7232. That's 800-503-7232 for Exceed Broadband. Call 800-503-7232. Again, 800-503-7232. Call now, 800-503-7232.
Attention pain sufferers. Are you one of the millions of Americans who suffer from arthritis pain, back pain, muscle strains, or any other pain? Get pain relief in minutes with real-time pain relief. It can work that fast. If your pain is preventing you from enjoying life, or worse, if pain is keeping you up at night, visit rtpr.com/radio for your free sample. We're so confident real-time pain relief will help you, we'll even pay for the shipping and handling. That's right, free sample and free shipping of the best-smelling, most effective topical pain relief product on the market.
I tried it and it worked. The fragrance is amazing. It has a refreshing scent, so I'm pain-free and smell good too.
The makers of real-time pain relief are so confident that you'll love their product. They're offering you a sample absolutely free, and that includes free shipping. Remember to visit rtpr.com/radio now for your free sample with free shipping. That's rtpr.com/radio. Again, go to rtpr.com/radio.
And now the number one reason to get Genie from DirecTV, the most advanced HD DVR ever. It serves your entire home with one HD DVR. Call now and get a free upgrade to Genie. Packages start at $29.99 a month.
Call 800-399-5101. Now get 47 channels of HBO Stars Cinemax free for 3 months. That's 800-399-5101.
DirecTV or an RVU-enabled TV device required for each additional room. Additional and advanced receiver fees apply. Offer requires 24-month agreement and qualifying package. $29.99 package not eligible. Offer ends 2/6/13. New approved customers only. Lease required. Other conditions apply. Call for details.
Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com. That's the Harlem Shuffle right there. A lot of times people mistake that for Jump Around. This is where that little hit originally came from. We've got a question from Corey. Corey's checking out the program live on Vocal and on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Corey says, with NC State getting rid of Tom O'Brien today, what are the chances they go after Chad Morris? It's an intriguing question. I think Chad Morris is obviously going to be one of the top choices at any opening across America, especially an opening that's regionalized to the Atlantic Coast Conference and where, right here in basically Morris's backyard, where everybody knows his brand and what he's done. It's funny, though, that you asked this question, Corey, because after the game, you talk about, you try and look at these things, you go, what are the bright spots? What are the things I can take away from this game? And I could go, that could be a positive. The one positive I think that may have come out of this is, one, that Chad Morris still has a lot to do at Clemson. Still has a lot to prove against solid defenses like South Carolina. And if you want to go back to the opening game and look at the way this team played such a tight ball game against Auburn from the SEC, which we know wasn't a very good Auburn team, Gene Chizik, that job opening up as well. That's a pretty good, that's something you got to think about too. That job's opening up too. That's another team that might be looking at him. But I do think that Morris is going to stay at Clemson. So that's kind of where I am. Clemson Tom says, what does Clemson need to do to compete with the big boys in the SEC? perfect segue for me here, Tom, because I look, and it's not just Clemson. Vanderbilt, 55, Wake Forest, 21. Georgia Tech loses 42-10 to Georgia. Florida State loses 37-26 to Florida. And South Carolina defeats Clemson 27-17. It's not just Clemson and what Clemson needs to do to excel and play with the big boys. Now, the deal is, though, the team we are concerned about is Clemson. And it comes down to me to finding the defensive line guys who can really impact the ball game. Because our defensive front played well against South Carolina. They played good enough for Clemson to win this game. I thought there were some very good moments from that defensive front. But when your secondary is not that great, and when guys are dropping clear interceptions, you've got to get more opportunities available. You have to get more opportunities. Mike in the chat room says lower the academic requirements. Nathan says look at the JUCOs. And you look at the job that Bill Snyder's done out at Kansas State. You talk about going the JUCO route. That's a guy who's perfected the art of the JUCO route. So for me, I just think that, in order to compete, it comes to the defensive line. You got to find a left tackle that can get you not just through the Atlantic Coast Conference, but can get you through South Carolina. The other thing, let's say this, and let's be fair. Jadeveon Clowney is not, they're not reproducing him. There's not going to be, some mold of him that they're just going to keep making it like a widget, and the next thing you can do is going to plug in a guy like him. That kid is unbelievable. We told you before the game, you knew it, you've seen this guy. If there's one player in America that every team would want, and I'm not kidding you, over Sammy Watkins, there are teams that can say, well, if Southern Cal, for example, could say, well, we got some good wide receivers. We got Liam Woods. We don't need a Watkins. We'll take him. We don't need him. That might be their thought. But I guarantee you this. You ask anybody in America if they want Jadeveon Clowney. How about this? Go ask anybody in the NFL if they take him tomorrow. That's how good that kid is. That's how good that kid is. Mike in the chat room says Sammy was invisible Saturday. You know what? It wasn't all Sammy's fault. There were a lot of read option plays where Taj Boyd could have given him the ball and chose to keep it. I don't know if that was by design or what. I'd be more than interested to find out, though, as we hear more as the week goes by, what the logic was behind that, because Sammy really didn't get any touches. He really didn't get a whole lot of touches, and that's what's probably one of the most disappointing things. But the entire ACC did not compete this weekend. A chance to go 4-0. The Atlantic Coast Conference goes 0-4. I see, let's see, now this is my wife writing it, but the question is coming from Danny Phillips. I have no idea. Maybe Danny asked my wife this question. Is there a college team that has an excellent defense and plays zone? Well, so many people play a mixture of defenses, Danny. And I think that we've seen some improvement. Let's be fair with Brent Venables. I think we've seen some improvement. I think we also have learned that a lot of the issues that Clemson's having right now is not just Brent Venables. It wasn't just Kevin Steele. You look at this class, this senior class. When you look at this small senior class, this is the group that when Tommy Bowden left the middle of the season, this is that group that Dabo Swinney signed, his first group that came in. The Dirty Dozen, I believe, is what they were called back in the day. And there were a number of guys who were committed to this team who were going to be in the secondary who aren't with us because they chose to honor a commitment somewhere else, break off their commitment to Clemson. And we could go through the names of those guys. Craig Loston down at LSU, safety, one of the top safeties in the country coming out his senior year of high school. Holloman at South Carolina, who's gotten, 3 interceptions in 4 games against Clemson? I mean, so you've got guys right there on the field against you who were lined up to come play. Scott in the chat room says, what bowls are we looking at? Man, this is intriguing because I don't think anybody's going to be excited about heading over to Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A Bowl. That's going to be the direction I think this thing could go. But for Clemson fans, I don't see anybody going, that's it, that's the one I want. And that's a major problem. I just retweeted a minute ago Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart. He said Sugar Bowl's choices to play Florida could be Rutgers or Kent State at this point. The Sugar Bowl was going to take Clemson to play Florida. Almost 100% had Clemson won against South Carolina. The Orange Bowl gets the other team. You could see a Kent State, Florida State Orange Bowl. That's what Tony Barnhart says. I just, Clemson and the Chick-fil-A versus Texas A&M might be an intriguing matchup if that were to happen. I can tell you the surefire sellout, the surefire Clemson fans will show up for it no matter what. They'll go through rain, sleet, or snow. It's not going to happen. But I guarantee you, I asked the question to the chat room, out of 5 games, if Clemson and South Carolina could play, how many could the Tigers win? I think most of you would like to play the Gamecocks again after what happened Saturday night in Death Valley. I think we'd all make that trek over for a game again against the Gamecocks. I think people would. Because I think people believe that in a different scenario, in a different, situation, Clemson can win that ball game. Tom says, I heard we could play them again. If so, I'll show up. So that's kind of where everybody's mind is right now as far as the bowl games go. I don't think you drop any further than the Chick-fil-A Bowl. But when you open up there in Atlanta, it's kind of a bitter pill to swallow going back to Atlanta unless you get a very intriguing matchup against a team like Texas A&M. Corey in the chat room says, how about LSU? I mean, those are games where I think people would be intrigued to go see. I mean, look, you give me Clemson versus LSU, if that could somehow fall into place, I could take that. I could maybe want to see that game as a fan and see if we can get over on an SEC defense. It's going to be tough, though. You know that fact right now. You see it when you look at Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Vandy, and Clemson, South Carolina from this past Saturday. The SEC is nothing to joke about. 58 years since the Gamecocks could say they had a 4-game winning streak against Clemson. The math has been done. Appreciate that. The SEC is legitimate, people. Clemson's getting good. We're climbing the ladder. We're making a dent nationally. But I, for one, am never – you're not going to hear me ever on this show again. I'm not going to come on here and tell you why I think the computers are wrong and that the SEC isn't the toughest league. I've seen it. We've seen it this past weekend. And there's no reason to shoot down the SEC and their hype. Mike in the chat room says, unfortunately, I have to buy into the SEC hype now. I'm with you. Brother, I'm all over it. I just don't see how we can't. And I don't even think it's hype. Those teams are playing really good football. They really are. And it's a tough thing when they come in at the top and they kind of beat each other and stay at the top, but they're pretty legitimate. They went out and proved it. But you know what? They play with a little edge. They play with a little more of an edge than I would like. One that I would like to see Clemson have played with, a little bit of attitude. You saw it on some of the hits. You saw them getting their little small pockets of the crowd fired up. If Clemson had played with that edge, if Clemson had come out and done those same things, and I'm not talking about taunting. I'm not talking about going over the top like DJ Swearinger did on that hit against Andre Ellington, which was a hit of epic proportion. I'm not talking about taunting a guy to that regard, but I'm talking getting the fans in it. I didn't see that until late in the ball game when Daniel Rodriguez ran out and tried to pump up the fans. Bitter pill. The SEC, though, they're legit. I'm buying in. We'll be right back. Hashtag TN Talk. That's all the letters. For somebody thought it was IN at one point. It's T, then the letter or N. I'm not even sure how you say it. And then talk, all one word, hashtag TN Talk, 803-450-0086. Go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com. There's a send voicemail button over on the right-hand side. And if you don't listen to the show live, please give it a shot. Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. The old saying in the chat room is that if the Baptists are going to church, later on they're going to be coming to see me here on Clemson Hotline or TigerNet Talk. That's how you can remember it. You don't need to pencil it in. Just know that. Church-going days are football talking days here on our program. Well, we talked about the SEC being legitimate in the chat room during that commercial break. They continued to talk about it, just how great that league was right now. And look, they're far and away superior to everybody else playing. And, last year when there were two SEC teams playing for the national championship, I said, that is such a bogus concept. It could happen again very easily this year. Well, I guess it can't now. Notre Dame cinched it up. I forgot Notre Dame doesn't have a game. So thank goodness it's not going to happen again this year. Woo, wipe my brow. Completely forgot Notre Dame squeaked one out against Southern Cal. So I guess we're not going to have that. But you could have, I guess, either Georgia or Alabama play for the national title. And I think Clemson fans would say, hey, let's get it to be Georgia because we open the season with them next year and have a chance to handle the national champions again like we did last season with that victory over Auburn in Death Valley. But it's going to be a big time ball game to open the season against Georgia. I had somebody even write me today a text message. They're like, forget the bowl game. They're like, cannot wait for that Georgia game. And I know that you folks can't either. All in all, though, you see this offense get out of rhythm. They never got things together. That was what was so frustrating, too, I think, is that even when South Carolina gave Clemson the ball back, maybe it was an interception that saved some points by Xavier Brewer when he made a big catch in the end zone, a fantastic grab after a couple of easy ones that he dropped. Clemson never could mount anything in the second half of that ball game. And then when you start looking at the statistics and the numbers of the game, and South Carolina having the ball for 40 minutes of the game and Clemson only having it for 20, you start to see why it was very easy for the South Carolina Gamecocks to eat away and wear away at this Clemson Tigers team's mentality and their focus on this game. There was a moment after or during the game where the sideline announcer said, hey, this Tiger offense sitting over here on the sidelines, nobody's really moving except for Taj Boyd. He had a little jittery knee, almost like he was ready to get out on the field, but they realized there was nothing they could do to get there. There was nothing that offense could do to get back out on the field. And when they did, give South Carolina some credit because Jadeveon Clowney was disruptive, setting a record for Memorial Stadium with 4.5 sacks. And to be honest with you, I think if you start looking, I mentioned how good he is. You got to give the kid some respect. But he said after that ball game that he will not lose to Clemson in his career. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Mr. Clowney, because I think when we fast forward and look ahead to what Clemson could have next season, if we can build on these defensive fronts, if we could get a kid like Carl Lawson to come in, if we could get a kid like Montravius Adams to come in and be on this team, some instant impact young freshman players who could make maybe I've said, and I'll still say it, somebody asked me at the tailgate about this, about Robert Kimdichie. Until Robert says, I am not going to Clemson, I don't think as a Clemson fan you need to feel like he's not coming. I think you're okay to feel good about him. I really do. Until we hear, I'm not going to Clemson, I just think you've got to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we're still in the mix. But those kind of players coming in could be the difference for Clemson. Quick rundown here of the top 15 for you in the AP. Notre Dame at 1, Alabama is 2, Georgia, Ohio State, Florida, Oregon at 6, Kansas State 7, Stanford at 8, LSU 9, Texas A&M 10, South Carolina 11, Oklahoma, then Florida State at 13, Nebraska 14, and your Clemson Tigers at 15. There's one thing I will say about a bowl matchup. You're probably going to get a good one. You probably are going to get a very good bowl matchup for your Clemson Tigers this year. You're going to get a chance to play against a team with 10 wins or more from the SEC. And if you ask me at the beginning of the season, what type of team would I want to play in a bowl game if I couldn't play in the national championship, and it would probably be a legitimate SEC team. Another opportunity for you to prove to America and to the rest of the world watching that, hey, you know what, we're a very legitimate ball club. Instead, people are still second-guessing. They're saying, hey, you had 2 games this year against teams where it was going to be a tight game, FSU and South Carolina, and you came up short in both. But we drilled everybody else. So, I mean, that's where we are. I don't know how you – and I'm interested to know because I just haven't been able to get down on this team because I feel like we've seen such strides in such a short period of time offensively. I mean, we shattered offensive records left and right in the regular season. I mean, it's just – I don't know. Scott writes in on Vocal, everyone is hating on the D. Is another year under Brent Venables' system going to be a different story? I surely like to hope so, Scott. I think, Brent Venables did a lot of good things in this ball game, but he did get out-coached in some key situations, coming out of some timeouts. And that was one thing I think that really, really kind of stuck it right in your jaw a little bit, kind of sticks with you. That 3rd and 19, that play call, Steve Spurrier has been a wizard. He really has. I mean, let's be honest. Could we say, would it be a fair statement, chat room, tell me if I'm wrong, to say that Steve Spurrier was Chad Morris before Chad Morris? Now, there might not have been as much eye candy and flash and dash. But when you talk about a guy who changed the game to some degree, who created, that run spread option, and you look back at the numbers of what Steve Spurrier did at Florida, putting big points up on people, scoring in chunks, big plays, slinging the football around. There's one thing that goes unnoticed and untalked about an awful lot, and that's just how good that team was at rushing the football. Chad Morris, on the other hand, came into a team that couldn't score, that couldn't put points on the board, that the defense, this is the difference. Morris's offense is so good that our defense can be lackluster and we can win a lot of ball games. But I do think that another year with Brent Venables is going to be better for this team. I think better players get in there, and there's some shocking surprises, I think, for me too this year. Spencer Shuey stepping up. It's been a big surprise. But for Spencer to step up, you had to have a guy like Stephon Anthony not play up to the level that you hoped he would, and that I hoped he would, and the coaching staff hoped he would. So you've got some guys coming into their junior season on the defensive side of the ball that you haven't seen production out of. Latique Townsend, Tony Stewart. These were 5-star studs, program changers. Maybe not on the defensive line, but as Chris points out, Tig Willard played a great game last night, Saturday night against the South Carolina Gamecocks. But we've got 5-star guys that can't get on the field. They've got to develop. They have to develop. We'll be back.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that.
Attention pain sufferers. Are you one of the millions of Americans who suffer from arthritis pain, back pain, muscle strains, or any other pain? Get pain relief in minutes with real-time pain relief. It can work that fast. If your pain is preventing you from enjoying life, or worse, if pain is keeping you up at night, visit rtpr.com/radio for your free sample. We're so confident real-time pain relief will help you, we'll even pay for the shipping and handling. That's right, free sample and free shipping of the best-smelling, most effective topical pain relief product on the market.
I tried it and it worked. The fragrance is amazing. It has a refreshing scent, so I'm pain-free and smell good too.
The makers of Real-Time Pain Relief are so confident that you'll love their product. They're offering you a sample absolutely free, and that includes free shipping. Remember to visit rtpr.com/radio now for your free sample with free shipping. That's rtpr.com/radio. Again, go to rtpr.com/radio.
Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you.
And now the number one reason to get Genie from DirecTV, the most advanced HD DVR ever. It serves your entire home with one HD DVR. Call now and get a free upgrade to Genie. Packages start at $29.99 a month.
Call now. That's 800-399-5101. That's right. Call now at 800-399-5101.
DirecTV or an RVU-enabled TV device required for each additional room. Additional and advanced receiver fees apply. Offer requires 24-month agreement and qualifying package. $29.99 package not eligible. Offer ends 2/6/13. New approved customers only. Lease required. Other conditions apply. Call for details.
Think if you live in a rural area you have to settle for a slow online experience?
We think that's crazy.
Exceed Broadband. It's the highest capacity satellite in the world, and it makes everything faster. Streaming videos, TV shows and movies, sharing photos, video chatting, sending files, and more. New feature,
Late Night Free Zone.
For details, call 800-503-7232. That's 800-503-7232 for Exceed Broadband. Call 800-503-7232. Again, 800-503-7232. Call now, 800-503-7232.
Welcome back into the Clemson Hotline. A couple of minutes left here in the program, so we're going to roll right along. Reach us throughout the week on Twitter, #TN Talk. Email us, clemson81@gmail.com. And the easiest way to leave us a voicemail is to go to clemsonsportstalk.com. And over on the right-hand side where it says send a voicemail, use your computer. That's the simple way. Or you can call anytime, 24 hours a day, 803-450-0086. That'll hit us up here in the studio, but not long left, so we won't be taking any more calls during this program. But we would love to hear from you. Danny writes in and says, can your normal Tiger defender really anticipate and learn the Brent Venable zone, or is that asking too much? And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I think one thing about the zone defense that Clemson was playing this season I think it has more to do with personnel and the players not getting their heads around sometimes in man-to-man coverage too, and I know that doesn't deal with the zone, but for crying out loud, an opportunity for some other interceptions were just left on the table because we didn't get our head on the swivel. We didn't know where the football was. Chris wants to know if we're having a show on Wednesday. Absolutely we are, 9 p.m. right here Wednesday night. We're going to have Tiger Net Talk, probably start moving a little bit towards basketball until we find out about this bowl matchup. And talking about the bowl matchup, as long as you're in the top 16, I believe, of the BCS, you still have a shot at being in a BCS bowl game. So Clemson could have a chance if some chips fall their way over the final weekend of the season as some of the conferences get their conference championship games underway. And you really want to know the difference in this game. You really want to know where this game was won or lost. We can get into not being able to maybe block Jadeveon Clowney at times or going up against him one-on-one, not getting Sammy the ball, not getting Nuke the ball, some drops, whatever, missed interceptions. We can crank out all those things if you want to. Here's where this game was lost for me. Punt, field goal, interception, punt, end of game. Count them up, people. It doesn't take long to figure it out. 5 possessions in the second half. And to be honest with you, really only 3 meaningful possessions. The first one after the half, the next one we got the field goal, and then we threw an interception while we were driving down the field. 4 minutes left in the game. Pressing. You end up going 3 and out and punting. And then you end the game. That's where the game was won or lost, in my mind. But you know what? I will wake up the rest of my days a Clemson Tiger. And if that's not enough reason to get up and pull for this team each and every week, football, baseball, or basketball, I don't know what is. We'll be back Wednesday night, 9 p.m. for TigerNet Talk. Until then, y'all take care now. And as always, go Tigers.